task. And after that,
It's
just
intimidating for the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you just...
I'm trying to, I stand out in front of people quite often, so.
Yeah, he's okay with public speaking. I'm not so much.
Yes, sir.
There's a cord there.
Yeah, you're always quiet.
Yeah.
Am I close enough?
You're good.
Is
Okay.
your cord okay?
Yeah.
Cord's good. We're all good. Okay. Everybody ready?
Yep.
Scroll of Thoth, Episode 14, April 30th, 2014.
Hi, James.
Hello. How you doing?
I'm pretty good. It seems like we just did this a couple of weeks ago.
We did.
Oh.
We kind of smashed them together.
Well, April is like that sometimes.
April's like that. Well, March was like that. Nothing happened in March.
But we have really exciting guests tonight.
We have very exciting guests tonight. Let's just go straight to the guests.
I think that'll be more fun.
My announcements aren't worth that much. Tonight we've got Brian and Christy Jenkins. They are Gothi and Githya of the Asatru faith. They're both members of the Thoth. And they are here to give me an education because they're already using words I don't know. And that's weird for me. How you guys doing?
Well, thank you.
Great, thanks.
Why don't we start out if you guys take turns and tell us what your role is amongst the Asatru.
Girls first.
You go ahead.
I actually, we have a kindred, Kesvar's Brunar. And
a kindred is?
A kindred is a group of people that is almost an outside family, if you will. People that get together on a regular basis that know one another real well. We all share the same faith and work as a community. So it's very tight-knit bunch of folks. So that's a pretty neat thing. And then you have other people that may join in and interact, and we actually call them a bit of the outer guard or the outer guard. Those people that actually may associate with you but may not follow 100% along with the same faith. But at the same point, for the most part, they act along the same lines. You share the same mindset. So I'm Gothi of the kindred. We actually have 6 people within the kindred. I actually also work as...
I'm going to stop you again. What does Gothi mean?
Gothi is God's man, is what it actually means. It's not something that, in this sense, is something that they actually, you were to go and get, how would you say it? There's not an actual license or anything for it. It's a lot of people kind of just put it on you in this sense. But there are people who actually go and act as formal clergy through that sense. So they actually have a formal training that way. And what we do, it's more along the lines that we have a lot of knowledge and we share a lot of things with people, and they have feel very free to call us that.
It's more than that, because it's really a priest relationship, even though that isn't a term that we might use in the community, because it's got a lot of baggage affiliated with it. But knowledge alone is not what gets you to be a Gothi or a Githya. It's respect and it's wisdom. Knowledge can come out of a book, but respect and wisdom have to be earned. And it's only when you actually earn those by fulfilling the needs of the community before you are named such that you get to fulfill that role. And so you are fulfilling the duty of clergy as would be done in another religion.
Sure. So there's some organization, there's some outreach, there's helping members of the community who need help.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, we do that. Yeah, and that's a regular thing. I mean, we've helped We've married people. We've actually, she does have the ability to do that, and I've assisted in that function. And we've helped people with plenty of life problems. And in that, I do rune casting, so I've actually used the Elder Futhark and do a form of casting that lends itself amazingly to fettering out the problems and getting right down to the base root of some issues that people may have questions about. So they'll come to us and ask questions, and through this divining technique, I'm able to give them answers and help them through it, which, we follow up on those things as well after they do it. So we do that too.
And you also conduct regular ritual with the group?
Yeah. Bloats, B-L-O-T-S, yes, which is more meaning of sacrifice to the gods in many different ways and forms, and for just about all kinds of things.
I had some friends who told me a bloat was about drinking.
That's the symbol.
No, no, not really. It's there is something that follows called the symbol, and there is some drinking that takes place there if people like. But at the same point, we have leaded and unleaded. Yes. People can choose those things. We don't like people driving under the influence or doing any of those things either. So, we want to keep everybody together. But those are two separate events.
Okay. Because one of the things that attracts me to the Asatru faith is I really like mead.
Yes. Oh, yeah, mead. It is a staple.
And typically a symbol follows a bloat.
Yeah. Typically. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, symbol would follow a bloat. The differences actually are the bloat is something that we use to we'll hollow the space. We actually call in and invite our gods, and we talk about the reasons that we're having the days and what we're actually doing there, why the day is holy, and why we actually want to sacrifice something to those gods in return for what they're actually giving us. And being that it's an earth-based religion, it typically has something to do with the cycles of the year, something that's going on in nature, or something that we need. So there's not necessarily a set schedule to them, as some other religions may have. But at the same point, we do have some holy days that we use them for, but they can be used for other things as well, if there's special need. And then the symbol actually takes place after the fact. So the bloat is actually for the gods in and of itself, and then the symbol is, I actually use it more for to learn of the community, to become closer. In the symbol, we actually have 3 rounds. The first round is the God's round, where everyone gets to welcome in what God they're working with, and we all call them into the hall and welcome them there to be among us. So, yeah, everybody goes around and hails in the God. Everybody gets their fair chance to speak. It's a non-interrupted thing, so everyone has their moment. The next round we use is the Ancestors round, in which we'll there again go around to every individual and offer them the chance to talk about someone who's influenced their life, that is deceased or passed. Then the third round, there is what we call oaths and boasts. So you can speak about yourself, or maybe someone that's living but not a fictitious person. It needs to be something that is going on in your life, or something that you've accomplished, something that you want to tell everybody about. Oaths are a little different. inside the kindred, we have an oath ring that they can take up, and we actually have the ability to challenge oaths. If we don't think that as God's man and God's woman that you can actually accomplish, or if it's going to affect our weird, W-Y-R-D, in some adverse way by you not coming across with it.
Okay, I'm going to come back to weird, but first I'm going to let Christy introduce herself and tell everyone what she does.
Yes, Githya is the God's woman, obviously. It's lack of a better term, second in command kind of thing, to a degree. We basically do the same functions. So what he has the ability to do, I have the ability to do myself. So I work with the men and the women in our kindred as well in the community. So
before the show, we were talking. Brian is a rune caster. You have a magical path that's different from that. You want to talk about that?
Yes, I am a Sith Kona, which is a wise woman. I do a lot of shamanic type practices. So I use it as a healing form more so than magic usually. I do have the ability to obviously go outside my body, seek answers, that kind of thing. So.
Okay.
And travel.
Yep.
So you know more about this than I do.
I should hope so.
So where do we want to? I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because I don't know if our listeners have the basics. I think everyone knows what Asatru is. I think everyone who's listening to this podcast probably knows Asatru is the Norse faith. I guess my first question that comes to mind for you guys with the Thoth, do you guys feel that it is a new religion, more based on neo-pagan themes, or are you guys trying to reconstruct? Is there some kind of mix of both? How does that go?
I think it's more a religion of reconstruction.
Also keep in mind that the Thoth is only one organization.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And we just all happen to be members of the Thoth here.
True.
And there are, there's the American Asatru organization. There are dozens of other organizations that practice Asatru. And some of them, the Thoth is a universalist organization, as we were talking about earlier, and we'll talk about again later, but not all of them are. There are other types of paths as well. So the listeners need to understand that there are flavors of Asatru, just like in Christianity or Protestantism there are Baptists and Pentecostals and different subsects or different organizations within the larger whole of the Christian faith.
I guess more specifically, you said you're Reconstructionist, so you're not casting circles and calling quarters like the Gardnerian Wiccans.
No.
You've got your own rituals that you're trying to base off of what has been passed down.
Yeah, we look a lot at the lore and how it's written, and try to grasp the things. What we actually do here is we try to catch the actual thought in the way that the folks lived during the times when the Norse people were actually most active. Okay, we want to understand why the cycles of the year happen and why these things take place and why there is a reason to have these bloats and a reason that we worship the way that we do. There are many ways that I'm trying to think of how best to put it. Some people would call myself somebody who wants to recreate this stuff, but actually take into consideration the way that we live today. I want to apply those old things to the new ways, and bring them into and make everybody realize and have a connection and really, truly, deep down understand why these things took place, what some of the struggles were, and why some of their, we have to have a lot of the virtues that we look for. It's really something that we try to grasp.
Right. We're not trying to live 800 to 2,000 years ago.
Right.
No.
Right.
We're not trying to go back to the days of carrying water and fighting off invaders and all of those kinds of things.
Right.
But we feel that there's a lot of value in the virtues that are taught, in the stories that come out in the Eddas and the sagas, and that they can give us a lot of direction in leading our lives, and that the gods set examples for us. And I often say in my groups that we consider the gods to be like older brothers and sisters. They've lived life longer than we have. They have the experience, and we go to them and ask for the wisdom of their experience.
Right.
It's not a worship like we would be doing if we were following a monotheistic path.
Right.
Right.
It's a veneration and an honoring.
Yeah, we walk among our gods. We don't bow to our gods, so it's different.
Yeah,
in
we
that way.
ask them for help. They are,
Right.
if you were to look at the definition of full truly, it is being fully true to a particular god, maybe not exclusively, but at the same point, it is almost as if, as I am with Odin, is my best friend, somebody that I count on for all kinds of things. I look for guidance, I seek wisdom, I seek the answers and different things in that relationship. But I also look at the other gods and ask for their assistance as well.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask one of my mean questions. This is a question I've asked before. This is a question I ask Reconstructionists. These cultures that built these religions were pretty bloodthirsty. I mean, the Vikings especially. I mean, there was no qualms about killing someone else if they weren't your people. How do you feel? I mean, how does that translate to the modern age? I mean, that was a huge part of their culture to go a Viking.
Farming was part of their culture too. So, I mean.
But their gods are all warrior gods.
Oh yeah.
No,
they're
no,
The Vanir were not. So,
Okay.
yeah.
there's actually a difference among the tribes, and that is the difference between the Vanir gods and the Azure gods. So when you look at the Vanir gods, so Njord, Freya, and Frey, those are the gods that were actually looked at as being fertility-based gods.
The earth gods. Earth-based.
Yes. Where the others that you typically think of were more warrior-like. So when you started thinking Odin, Tyr, Thor, and on down into some of the others, even Baldar and things. Yeah, Heimdall, there were warrior aspects to all of them. But that is the fascinating thing about a lot of those gods, too, is that they're not set up to they overlap one another in sovereignties. And I don't even know at that point that you could actually call them a sovereignty in amongst themselves, because they do overlap one another so much. As far as being as bloodthirsty as they were, or as people think that they were.
And I would blame Christians and their ancient religion this too, but go on.
Yeah, the victor writes the history for sure.
Yeah, and that is the thing. I mean, the victor writes the history, but I mean, there's a lot of truth in a lot of things too. So I mean, as far as being, if you were to look at the actual way of life, I mean, they had a very rich culture. They went around the world trading peaceably with people from the Mediterranean all over the world. I mean, even they had enough time to actually build an actual offset village here in North America, you know, amongst Native Americans. It wasn't because they came here and just instantly started killing everybody. And then if you look at it as well, if you look at all the influences that the Norse culture has had over time, you're also looking at them affecting everything from the way that we tell time and the names of the days of the week, in the ways that we look at all kinds of different things. And it was not a culture that just was destroyed over time. They actually wanted to settle amongst these people, lived amongst these people, and almost assimilated into them instead of everyone assimilating into their culture. When you look at the way that they treated their slaves and the way that they held their women in high regard, women had rights, which over time actually disappeared, you know, amongst when you start looking at the feudal lords and things like that.
Well, when Christianity started to enter into the picture,
right,
and they took on many of the values and the virtues of Christianity, then the equality of the sexes kind of went away, and we've seen that in culture after culture.
Right.
But also there's the whole idea that so many people think that everything Nordic means that they were Vikings, and the Viking period was only a short period of their history.
That's right.
And it was in retaliation for the things that were done to them. So they were not necessarily a brutal culture that went out with the idea of maiming, raping, and killing everybody. Yes, there was some of that went on, but it was, as I said, a short period in their history. Much more of their history was becoming merchants, well-known, worldwide merchants, respected dealers, good farmers. And, you know, young men did sometimes go out on the sea, but typically they came home, got married, and became farmers or merchants and raised their families. So it's a misconception by our culture of what that culture really was about.
But do understand, and I have to give you, I mean, I have to give them that, as far as being a fierce people, and still today, as among you know, the way that we look at strength as a virtue, and that's in every aspect of life. And back then, I mean, when you look at the gods that they dealt with, there was a lot to be said in the fact that, you know, hey, it is in your deeds and things like that comes fame and fortune follows, but at the same point,
for the most part, we've traded our swords for pens, so by writing utensil pens. So you know, I mean, it's just a different way that we do battle. So. But
when it came down in the past to actually being good at fighting, yeah, they were amongst the best. And they were to the point that, you know, in the Byzantine Empire, they were actually the pardon me, the berserkers were actually held as the high guard in the Byzantine Empire for some time. So, I mean, hired amongst other people because they were that formidable.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they did go in, if you've seen any of the Viking shows that they have on History Channel, there is some historical context to that. And, you know, they did try to go in and gain lands and live amongst them. I mean, you see those in a lot of your cities today, you know, that they still have out. Vikings were huge in York and all kinds of places.
Scandinavia is not the most arable piece of land out there.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I think my own rebuttal to myself would be, you look at the main Viking cultures that did that were all the Scandinavian cultures, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and these are now some of the most peace-loving countries on the planet.
Yeah.
You know, they don't invade anybody.
Right. Yeah, neutral countries.
Yeah. So
And I think that there's something to be said too, and I've chased this one actually for a while in my own studies, and saying that I've always looked for why is it that we saw a transition from the Vanir gods to the Azure gods, and then we see in the final battles through Ragnarok that we have, we're going back to almost a fertility base, or almost back to a Vanir-like. And I think that there's something to be said in exactly your statement in saying that it was not the most hospitable of lands. You know that agriculture didn't come into some of those regions until almost 1300.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, hey, slash and burn and other places that happen. That may have happened over there for some time, but there's a lot of non-tillable soil there too. And as time goes, population goes up. There are reasons to go outside the local city or village and try to find a new place.
Wood.
Yeah, wood. Yeah, build more ships.
Well,
But
there's
even-
only so many fish you can eat, too.
Sure. But even from the Neolithic period, so when you first hear of the Viking Age, in the late 700s, there were people still in the Norse regions in the Neolithic period. And they had already had ships and art and different things as well, and lived all through those times before they actually ventured out. And you hear of Lindisfarne and the first Viking raids, and then on up through the year about 1000, which was 220 some odd years of what they would actually call the Viking Age.
I'm gonna interject because one of my favorite people is an anthropologist by the name of Wade Davis, and one of his favorite things to say, and I'm gonna butcher it, is that we tend to think here in the West of our great technological marvel and our great society as the greatest expression of human value, of human form, and nothing could be further from the truth. There have been other cultures, other places, and their contribution is just as valid, just as complex, just as rich. He spent time with the Polynesian people, and they had navigators who can navigate the Pacific Ocean based on the shape of the waves that's coming towards their boat.
Wow.
And by the stars, without any kind of astrolabe, any of that information that the Westerners had, and the Vikings did similar things.
Absolutely.
And so that's a kind of knowledge, a body of knowledge that's similar to NASA. I mean, to take a ship from that time and send it all the way to Newfoundland, that's a moonshot.
Well, it's like Colleen said earlier, it's past a knowledge thing, it's more of a wisdom. It's something that you've instilled in yourself over time, hard times and having to do these things on your own. So having to visit other lands and, promote your, basically with the merchant thing,
Right.
and try to promote your own society, so.
Yeah, they had, and that's exactly the case. I mean, when you look at some of the technology that they used, it was really astounding for the time.
What was the stone that they used?
Sunstone.
The sunstones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that? That was
They used it for navigation.
No, it was calcite. It's a calcite stone. So.
It's a calcite stone, and the weird thing about calcite and the way that they used that stone was they could tell where the sun was even through dense clouds, and it would also show where the sun was up to about a half hour after the sun set. So they could navigate and see, they could hold this up to the sky and it would illuminate itself the brightest where the sun was, so they could actually get a sense of direction based on where they were. And that was just one of the things that they used. I mean, who would have thought of picking up a stone and, okay, wow. Neat idea, but they're, again, one of those inventions. And the ships that they used in and of themselves, the long ship, was light years ahead for that time. And, there were a lot of amazing technologies and things like that put into the making of a longship.
Right, they were very fast, and they could go in much shallower water, and so they were superior seamen.
Yeah. So if you thought about, and there again, something that you wouldn't think about, and maybe it's not the entire reason that they had it, but we're dealing with a place full of fjords and different things like that, right? You see huge differences in tidal, high tide and low tide spaces. So you have to have a ship that moves through shallow water. Lindisfarne, the first of the Viking raids, right? Today, there's an actual road that you can get to that place with, but during high tide they have safety places where you can pull off and set while high tide comes in. You don't want to be out along the road when the tide comes in, and that's the huge difference between high tide, what we see here, and hey, we're all going to the beach, pick a beach anywhere in the United States, and okay, there's high tide and there's low tide, we're all on the same beach, no big deal. Over there it may be 300, 500 yards, between high tide and where you'd have to walk to get to actual water during low tide.
Let's bring it back to what you guys are doing now. I'd love to do a history podcast. I love history, but
Sure.
From what I understand, the Asatru faith is a lot about virtues. It's a lot about certain codes of conduct, ways of conducting yourself. Can you guys explain that to me and how it affects your life?
Yeah. There are what we call the 9 noble virtues. We have a few different things. Typically, the 9 noble virtues are the things that people look to the most. And it's really a set of virtues that are set out as a way to build character, in my personal opinion. So when you look at the things that they hold you to, it really gets deeply into how good a person that you actually are. The virtues in and of themselves, you have to look on all of them. We're going to have to call it for just a second, because of all 9, there's like 2 that I don't recall just right off.
That's okay. Did you want a list?
Well, we can help you with that.
No, I got that right here.
Probably between the two of you, you can.
Between the 3 of us.
Great.
Yeah. You going to pull it up? Yeah, so it's going to take a second of editing. Because of that, they're huge. And it is something that, and I've written on them a blue million times, but you have the 9 charges, you have the 9 noble virtues, you have the 6-fold goal, and in them you can get them intermingled at times.
Well, and we use them in prison to help men change their lives, to help men and women change their lives. And the motto that we use is, I don't care who you were or what you did, I care who you want to be.
Right.
And so by implementing the 9 noble virtues and helping them understand what those are, then we help them to rebuild the structure of their lives.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay. I'm going to count down 10 seconds of silence, and then you just start in what the 9 virtues are.
Okay.
Glasses.
Yeah, so the 9 noble virtues in and of themselves, you have courage, truth and honesty, honor, fidelity, discipline, hospitality, industriousness, self-reliance, and perseverance. So of them things, we use them to, one, there again, build a strong character, and they lend themselves well to actually good things to be doing all the time. year-round. There's nothing wrong with them at all. These things were actually codified. It's not something that they're, again, as far as reconstructionist-wise, these things were thought up, I believe, in like codified through the lore in like 1972, I believe it was, by the Odeonic Rite. And we use them a lot today. And there again, in each one of those, in every aspect of life, we think on ourselves and try to ask yourself at any given moment, are these the things that I'm actually personifying? So it's something that, do we use them today? Absolutely. They're, like I said, codified in the recent past.
But I don't think it's hard to see at all where all of those are part of the lore, or part of the mythology.
Yeah, and it's really just it came from I believe living a difficult life in a difficult time, and still to this day people know difficulties and they struggle. And in those moments, whether you may feel yourself being weak or what, you can always find strength in those virtues and say that I at least have those. If there's nothing else to be had, if you embody them things, the sun will always shine and there's always hope. So those are things that we need to look at all the time, and they'll make all of us a better person. And if everyone embodied those things, we wouldn't have the problems that we have today.
You gonna ask anything? You're gonna let me hog this all up?
Well, you're doing a really good job of that, and probably because I'm kind of on the inside with them, I may not want to ask the difficult questions. I know that the really difficult question is, you white supremacist scumbags, what do you think you're doing? And I get that all the time, and, as I said earlier when we were talking before, hey, my natural color is fish belly white, and I have red hair, and you have red hair, and, so people look at us and they say, well, you're white supremacist, you hate everybody else. And what it's based in is the fact that it's Northern European people who are interacting with Northern European gods. And back in the time when we're talking about, virtually everybody was white. Everybody that was there was white. And so it's all tied up in protecting your family and wanting your children to live on and prosper. It's not unlike anybody else wanting their family and their children to live on and prosper and be proud of who they are and where they came from. I'm not saying that there aren't white supremacist groups, because there sure are, and I encounter them in the prison all the time. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are just all kinds of gangs in there, and you would not believe the things that they teach. It's all about a power struggle. It's all about how am I going to beat down the other person. It has nothing to do with the virtues.
I'm really glad you admitted that, because a lot of times I talk to Christians and I say, what's up with all these Christians that hate gay people and want to go to war? And they go, they're not Christians. I'm like, yeah, they are. They just said they're fucking Christian.
Right.
And to me, that's just such a hypocritical cop-out. Where, if someone came to me and said, hey, these pagan chaos magicians over here are a bunch of child molesters, I'd be the first one in line to kick their ass.
Right. Well, it's just proves that there's an asshole in every crowd, and no one's immune to it.
There is. I mean, we're not perfect.
Right.
I'm not perfect.
No community, no religious affiliation out there is going to keep you from seeing those kind of things go on. It's going to happen. I mean, it's inevitable that it's going to happen.
People pervert religions.
They do.
In order to accomplish their own means.
Well, and they hide behind those religions.
Oh, of course.
I mean, the religion in and of itself is a good thing, whether it's Christianity or Wicca or Asatru or any other religion out there. I mean, the basis in it is for a good cause and for a good reason. Is to, is something for you to build on and to try to live better. but people hide behind those things, and you're just not going to fix it. So.
I think the Asatru have a difficult time because of a couple of reasons. Number one, because Hitler tried to glom onto this symbolism to motivate the Third Reich.
Absolutely.
And, you know, he wasn't doing anything religious. He was a Christian.
Right.
You know, this was a thing he used as propaganda.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's actually been said to have, you know, have had several large problems with the entire occult thing. You know, they tried to base it on the Germanic history of the Norse people and where that came from. Did use some of the symbols that you see out there and the runic symbols. And without getting into the history or anything like that, it's just literally very unfortunate that he decided to take on them things that had nothing at all to do with racism and turn it into something as just, ass backward as that.
Well, here was a guy that claimed to be Christian, but yet he was using Norse symbols, which was a pagan, so to speak, religion. You know, they were
to persecute
heathens.
the Jews too.
Right, to persecute another culture. So, you know, I mean, that in and of itself should tell you that the guy was really messed up. I mean, it's just he just couldn't seem to figure out which way he wanted to go with that. So.
And there are a lot of people today who are messed up. You know, we know that it's no different than in any other culture. And so they look for anything to grab a hold of that they think will give them power and set them apart.
Yes.
They want to be recognized, they want to be taken seriously, and they look for something that they think will help them achieve that goal. And for many of them, they're full of hate.
Sure.
They're hurt and broken individuals who can only lash out at the world in hate, and they use this as a way to do it.
Sure.
I'm white, therefore I'm superior. I'm big and muscular. I've got blonde hair. Whatever it is, you know, I'm a member of the Aryan race. Whatever that is, because, you know, when you look at it culturally, the Aryan race was very, very large and really had not a whole lot to do with Germany. Germany was part of it. Well, yes, we know that. Indo-European to begin with. But still, they are misinformed. And they're broken. They're just broken. And in the prison, they set it up as a safety mechanism. If you're a member of the Aryan Brotherhood and you know their handshakes and their symbols and all of that kind of stuff, they'll kill somebody for you.
Right.
They will kill somebody that messes with you. They will protect you, but you pay, and you pay in hatred.
Absolutely.
And there's no recovery in that. There's no honor in that, even though they have a perverted idea of honor. It is not the virtues that we teach. It is not what any religion teaches at its core.
Well, and most of your religions take it personal. It's not a personal thing that they picked your religion to hide behind. It's not about you. It's not about your religion. It's about them.
Right.
And that's the problem. You know, people, they see it as a personal, you know, hit against themselves, and it's not that at all. So.
Is that the tough question you wanted me to ask?
That was one. I think there's also a problem, you know, as I laud modern-day Scandinavian culture for being peace-loving, they also have a big problem with being insular and casually racist. I mean, this is something I've heard from friends who live there. And, you know, you get dickbags like Anders Breivik, and, you know, it's a problem. But once again, it's not anything to do with Asatru or even their ancient culture.
That's an individual thing. I don't think it's a group thing.
We have a lot of members of Congress who would fit that, and they don't blame America for that.
Dickbags?
Yeah, well,
some people do.
racist, all
Some people
kinds of
do
things.
blame America, and you know, I feel a little responsible. But you know,
Yeah.
I didn't vote for any of them.
Yeah, no,
Anyway.
you find it across the board, and you know that. I'm sorry, but the entire religion thing, and I smack of all of it when it comes to the fact that you know, you look at the things done in the name of religion.
Sorry.
Somebody didn't turn off their phone.
Somebody didn't turn off the phone.
Thank gosh.
Says, hey, Mom, your
It's
phone's
a
ringing.
horrid ringtone.
Thank you. It gets your attention.
I was going to say the more annoying it is, the more it gets your attention.
And if we got the wind chimes.
Yeah, we're getting a little of that, aren't we?
I can close the door.
That's all right. It's atmosphere.
The phone is now turning on. And we were just in such a good emotional mode there.
Yeah, we're rolling.
Yeah. Take two.
Yeah, I really look at the fact that there again, you know, there's a lot of stuff over history that's happened in the name of religion, and none of it really ever comes out the way anyone really pictures it to be. You know, the Crusades, what happened there? You know, if anybody knows anything about that, it didn't really go real far. It took a whole bunch of time, but never got where it was going.
Killed a lot of people.
Killed a whole bunch of people.
Hey,
Did do that.
some people would say it did accomplish its goals in killing off a lot of second, third, and fourth born sons of Europe.
Oh, well, yeah, it did that.
Yep.
It did that. And I can say that, too. I mean, in that, you know, they have the greatest conversion of all, you know, was that of the northern Scandinavian people and those Germanic tribes, you know, and those people through the Crusades were the converted ones. You know, what are you going to do with a bunch of ex-warriors? You know, you better give them something to do, or there's gonna be problems everywhere.
So you make them
So,
priests.
Yeah, you can do that. Heck yeah, make them something. But yeah, I mean, that didn't really go over too well. I mean, you know, all kinds of people died in the name of God there and that God, and then you look at the way that a lot of the far extremist Muslim community is happening today. Holy smoke, you know, what's going on there? Same thing, a whole bunch of nothing really productive. And, you
All
know,
in the name of Allah.
yeah. And, you know, we've entered into some major wars over things. You know, I try to get people's mind in perspective. You know, we entered into the Second World War for Japan, or the Japanese folks coming over here and bombing Pearl Harbor and killing, I think it was in the 3,300 people range. You know, so that started an entire Third World War. You know, when the Twin Towers were collapsed, you know, that was another 3,000 plus people. And then you go and you look at Charlemagne comes and in one setting, you know, slaughters 4,500 Norse people, and then wonders why they burnt and sacked Paris.
Well, and let's not forget the Native Americans and what the usurpers to this country, which would be us, did in the past to the Native Americans. We killed
Sure.
millions.
Sure.
Millions.
Absolutely. And all in the name of what?
Yeah, sure.
And, you know, there's a part of history that you need to, you know, the victor writes it, and then everybody's expected to forget, and then just go on about their daily lives. And I think it's best that you don't repeat the past by remembering what it is. There's a lot of why our ancestors have such a huge role in these things. You know, why a lot of the holidays actually mean what they mean. And a lot of it's based in remembrance of where we came from. If you forget it, then all of a sudden, my dad said it to me one time. He said there's a reason why the human genome actually doesn't evolve any better than it does, is because when we're told not to put our hand on the stove, and then we do it again anyway. And that just means that we keep continually making the same mistake over and over again, whereas if you would learn from the mistake and teach your kids from that mistake, and they would listen to that mistake and not put their hand on the stove, they could move on to the next bigger problem. But instead, we want to just continually make the same blunder-ass error all the time, and we get nowhere with it. So let's grow. Let's become enlightened. Let's move up in the evolutionary scale.
Well, we have to understand that nobody's innocent. No culture is innocent. And, you know, what it is it's a bunch of people pointing fingers at other people so that they're not reflecting back on themselves. The thing that I really like about the Norse gods is that the sagas and the Eddas tell us the good things that they did, and they tell us the ridiculous and bad things that they did. I mean, we were laughing earlier about Loki turning into a female horse and having to bear Sleipnir, you know, the 8-legged horse who was Odin's war horse.
Suffer horse rape.
Yeah, well, I wasn't going to be that crude, but go ahead, James.
Let's just say it the way it is.
And our gods are secure enough in who they were and who they are that they put their mistakes out there. And, you know, sometimes they say this was really stupid, or this is a thing that people do. You know, sometimes you try to dress up like a woman and pawn yourself off as a woman because your buddy lied and got you into some kind of a mess. And again, that's Loki and Thor. You know, they're secure enough that they say that. What other religion allows your gods to be people? Allows them to make the same mistakes that we make, the same misjudgments that we make. And that's why we can go to them and say, hey, I need help with this, and I know you've already been there because I read it in the stories.
Sure.
And I know that you know how to get out of this.
Well, and they set an example for us. If they can own up to it, why can we not own up to it?
Exactly.
You know? So, and I think that's a lot of what the Asatru religion is based on, is taking responsibility for your mistakes, for the things that you've done.
And responsibility is often listed as one of those virtues.
Sure, absolutely.
You know what else is really nice? Because the Greeks are like that too. They make a lot of mistakes and we could put out there. But, you know, the Norse, to me, seem to be one of the very few that have a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all that
Yeah,
mean.
we have
That's
some
why we
humor.
have a symbol.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know, that
I
is
agree.
there's a lot to that. You know, we do show that they are mistakes, but we actually believe that we are descendant from the gods themselves. Heimdall made the different sections of man, you know, and the lore tells us how those things came about. You know, there's entire tomes written about the lineage of kings based from Odin down.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot
Well,
of
and
things.
Heimdall visited the earth as Rig and fathered children.
Yeah.
Didn't they all?
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
all
I
of
mean, it was...
They were a horny lot.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah. There's a reason that Odin was thought of the aesthetic god.
The All-Father is
Yeah.
not...
It's not
Yeah.
just a title.
Yeah, exactly. There's
Yeah.
some truth in that.
There's something to be said of the ecstasy involved in things. And yeah, I mean, you see the taking of wives and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, we see all of those things that come down in the lore. And I have to say something about the lore in and of itself. I mean, we talk about these other things in the recreational part of things. And something that I've written a few articles on in the past is the fact that, you know, our lore was actually written by Christian people hundreds of years after the fact. So it was more, you know, Snorri Sturluson actually wrote things in where you actually see the Poetic Edda. That was really based on the fact that he was trying to get the Norwegian kings to realize how good a entertainment form skaldic practices were. It really had nothing to do. He wasn't, I mean, I'm sure that at some point he was thinking about taking down some of the old lore as well, but at that point we see the bards and the musicians and the different things starting to take over, and it all became a whole different entertainment instead of where the lore is actually has 3 different tongues in which they actually sang these things. So it was a beautiful way that all of our heritage came down. It was all oral tradition. It wasn't all just something written down. So all of this lore and everything through Snorri Sturluson was written for that fact. When you look at Saxo Grammaticus, you know, that guy was actually wrote underneath 2 archbishops and glorified the Danish people in many ways, and literally made
I got a
out.
really awful visual there.
Uh-oh.
Writing underneath 2 archbishops. Sorry. No, I'm not.
It's okay. But yeah, la. But at the same point, you know, so there were many things that he wrote that were not necessarily wholehearted the truth. When you look at, you know, you go down through and look at, why does the name escape me all of a sudden?
Give us a hint.
Another one of them big authors wrote Germania. Tacitus. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wow, what a blunder. And I always talk about the guy. When you look at Tacitus, you know, he actually wrote the majority of his stuff, and he actually liked a lot of the things about the Norse people. But at the same time, there were other things that he thought were just totally barbaric. But this is a man who was, you know, came in and was writing these things more along the lines or more for almost intelligence report to let the people in, you know, the expanding empire know what they were up against, you know. So he was writing for a whole different reason. And at the same point, you know, he really didn't much care for the fact of the way that his own people acted. He loathed the way that a lot of their own people acted. So he thought, you know, hey, the way they treat their women is, you know, exceptional. And you know, he wrote of the different, a lot of different things that he really liked about the people in those territories. But so bottom line, when you look at a lot of the different things that came about through where you find some of the lore and some of the stories, historical stories, there's always some different take. It wasn't really all based on what we had written down. You look at the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles; those things were all written, you know, during the Anglo-Saxon time. Some of them in runes, but that was well after the runes became something that was phonic and used for an actual writing utensil. Those were more alphabetic than the original Elder Futhark were, and it wasn't. It was really their telling of the stories. There again, from a perspective of what they were. But in the past, the Angles and the Saxons were amongst the tribes that actually invaded that part of the world, you know, and we're right up against the Celts at that point. So there's a lot of different things that are happening.
All right, I don't even know where that started. But before we run out of time, I want to ask a question that's I'm really interested in. Christy, could you tell me some more specifics about your shamanic practice? What things do you do to build altered states of consciousness, and what are your goals with that?
I actually have Native American ancestry as well. I started out in shamanism that was based more along the lines of those practices. One of my teachers is an Apache lady. She's an awesome person. But she taught me how to travel. And
You mean astral travel?
Right. I travel the 3 worlds. It's what we call journeying. I do it with drums. And it's an altered state of consciousness is what it is. I can travel to the upper, the lower, and the middle planes. The lower planes is basically the underworld. That's where we go to, you know, speak to our animal guides, our ancestors. In the Norse tradition, that's where our ancestors are in hell, for the most part.
It's H-E-L, 1 L, and it has nothing to do with the Christian
Helheim. Hell for
Except
short,
for-
Helheim.
The etymology, but yeah.
Right. The middle plane is more where the spirits that have not moved on, you'll find them hanging out in the middle plane. We call that psychopomp work, when you work to help those spirits cross over. The upper world is more the world of the gods. It's, like I said, altered state of consciousness. I gain it through drums. Just a constant drum beat is what it is. We have callbacks that brings you back. And
Classic Horner.
yes, basically, yeah. So,
Okay. What is some of your goals when you go traveling besides just communication?
I actually travel for other people for the most part anymore. I do travel for myself on occasion, but not as much as I would like to or used to. I travel for other people, and it's more of a healing process to gather information to help them overcome certain things, certain blocks that they've had created or created for themselves in their life. They call it soul retrieval, which is basically going and getting an essence, one of their essences, and bringing it back to them, restoring them to a whole person, giving them information and basic guidelines on how to keep that essence so that it doesn't flee again. It's always caused by trauma. Trauma doesn't necessarily have to mean someone who was raped. Trauma to me is totally different from trauma to you. It could simply be that their aunt went away and it left them traumatized for whatever reason.
They feel abandoned or rejected or any
Right.
number
You
of
lost
things.
your job and you don't know how to pay your bills.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, for some people, that's huge. He would just have a meltdown over something like that. Whereas me, I'd be like, okay, well now I gotta go get another job. That's not my kind of trauma. But those are the things that I do and the reasons why I travel. So it's more, like I said, a healing process for other people. So.
Do you do group journey work, like particularly when you're working with someone individually, where you actually go on a journey with them?
I kind of leave it up to the client. What I do in my classes when I teach shamanism, I know shamanism, bad word, shouldn't use that, but I do.
It's a perfect word.
Right. So
It's
shamanism,
Russian.
during my
shamanism.
classes, I do group journeys with them, basically to teach them how to travel. I have not done group journeys with clients. That is more of a personal thing. I've had clients that say, hey, I want to go with you. That's fine. Most of my clients have no desire to enter into that world. That's something that should be left up to the client, in my opinion.
Well, one of
They've
the
been
things,
through enough traumas. They don't need me to traumatize them more by telling them, hey, you need to do this.
one of the things that I was thinking is, I mean, you can journey for many reasons.
Absolutely.
And I worked with a group up when I lived up in Michigan,
Mm-hmm.
and they would do healing journey work, earth healing journey work, and we would get together as a group, and we would decide on a place that needed healing energy, like Chernobyl. We selected Chernobyl one time, and as a group, we would journey. Like we'd all lay out on the floor, and there would be 20 of us or something like that, and we would each individually then go, but be connected with the rest of the group to touch the soil, to touch the spirits that we saw there, and to impart healing energy. So that's a very similar type of work that can be, or that I have done in a group with other people.
Right.
The healing type of work that you're talking about has to be done pretty much one-on-one,
Right.
because it's very private and very different for every one of us. Trauma is different, as you said, for each of us.
Now there are, I'm also a medicine bag carrier in the Peruvian Incan shaman tradition. I've received all of the 9 Munaki rites. And And there are certain days of the week that shamans all over the world that have been trained in the Peruvian way will get together. I mean, there was one that's on Thursday, there's one on Wednesdays, that they get together and basically just do healing work for the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, for the two-leggeds or the four-leggeds or, you know, whatever they choose to do it that week for. So, yeah, it's an awesome concept. So,
You know, I'm going to show my lefty leanings here. I'm going to talk about Noam Chomsky. He says something very interesting about this great existential crisis that we're all facing with our environment.
mm-hmm.
It's very interesting to see that the industrial nations really don't want to do anything, but so many indigenous people are standing up and speaking out and doing everything they can to save the planet.
Yes, they absolutely are.
The planet is the
Absolutely.
biggest thing there. There's a reason that in the first parts there was Mother Earth and Father Sky. And it's because everything that you see around you, and what I tell people is that the nature of the universe is actually chaos. The order that you see is actually something that you have formed yourself. All of these things that are man-made are things that they needed to have in order to show themselves a way to get out of the elements or do something about that or have some form of order or control over the world around them. It is really, but the fact of the matter is that without everything that's out there and without the earth in which they get all of the raw materials from, you would have none of this. So learn where you came from and stay where you belong. I mean, you might be able to have these things, but it's not a problem to be a steward of where you live, understand what effects you have on the environment and things like that. Do something about it.
And steward does not mean I have dominion over everything, therefore I can do whatever I want with it.
Right.
No, absolutely not. It's almost like animal husbandry or something.
Well, and understand that there is a self-preservation with the earth. She will only take it for so long before she will be done taking it. And we are mere humans. So, she will take it back.
Fleas on the back.
Absolutely.
Everything that man builds, Mother Nature instantly is trying to take back.
Yeah, so basically what they're doing, the indigenous peoples, everyone that's fighting for the earth, what they're doing is fighting for us. So unless people stand up and take heed to what they're saying, there will be some serious consequences.
Okay, so we've hit our hour mark here. Is there any last things you guys want to say about Asatru, about things that you do that you think are important?
Well, I do want to tell them about the great story that I just read of yours, and it is called
Of Little Faith.
Of Little Faith. I hope you turn it into a full-length book.
Yeah, that's probably not going to happen.
Well, still, I can hope. But at any rate, it's a wonderful philosophical type story about Loki and Lucifer and Odin, and with a guest appearance by
Uncle Al.
Well, yes, Aleister Crowley's in there as well. But I was thinking of the elephant god, whose name I forgot. Ganesh. So
that's awesome.
Really, go to Amazon, Smashwords, whatever all those places are, pick it up and read it. It's a short story, and it's great, and it will fit in very well with the types of things that we've been talking about, tongue-in-cheek.
It's interesting. That story was actually inspired by a guy I met online who was Asatru and wanted nothing more in his life but to join the Marines and go to Iraq and die fighting.
Be a warrior.
Wow.
Go to Valhalla.
I just, I came from that, where's the place of these gods in this modern era?
That's awesome.
That'd be an interesting read. Because, there's a lot to be said about some of that. I'd like to see it.
Yeah, and speaking of books, I'm going to put Brian on the spot.
Oh, good.
He has a book that he should be putting out, too.
I do know that he did make an oath on it the last time I was out there.
And he has been working towards that goal.
Yeah.
Not fast enough for me, of course, but he's been working towards it.
I just want to know what the Were Guild is if he doesn't get it done.
Yeah, The thing about it is that yeah, there's always life things that come up, but I've already done a basic workbook on runes and rune study and divination within them, and it's really trying to add some of the other things over time. And my wife gets on me because I'm trying to revise it for the umpteenth time, because, well, as you do anything, you always learn something. And I mean, I'll learn something tomorrow and touch base on something different about the runes then. But at the same point, that's what's happening. So there's some things that I need to complete and finish and add up. And
Well, editing is important, but there's something to be said about getting that first draft done.
yeah.
Right?
And Christy, aren't you writing a book too?
No. I don't write. I write my books, my booklets for my classes, and that's
Okay. Well, that must have been somebody else in the group who was also working on a book.
Shanika. Yes, our
Yeah.
friend
So,
Shanika.
So you
Hers
cut
was
them
just
off.
published.
Oh,
About
sorry.
last words. Anything you wanted people to know about the Osh True Faith?
I think that, hey, you know, if everybody, anyone that's interested should maybe try to get a hold of us. You can look at, we're going to do something with the Church Within on the south side of Indianapolis and have some meetings there.
Fountain Square.
Fountain Square, that's right. And I'm trying to get them set up for the first weekends of the month.
First
the
Saturday of the month.
Yeah, that's what I'm working toward, because I wanted to be able to do some traveling around as well and talk to some people, because we're actually looking for other people. We've had bunches of people in our moots or meetings before, and it's always interesting. Before we had them, and we had upwards of 40 people at some of these things. So and
We have a great group too. It's very open. You do not have to be Asatru to attend the meetings. We're open to anyone that wants to learn. We are not, however, open to anyone that is looking to cause a problem. So.
Well, and you also have a Facebook group or
Yes.
two.
Yes.
So why don't you tell us about that?
yeah, we have YHS Asatru, which you have to kind of apply to get into, because I'm not looking for storms or anything else. It's actually my whole point in it, and in Kidfars Brunar, the entire mission statement is pretty much to say that we have some knowledge to share. We want to educate people about these things. We want them to know these gods, and we really would like to be a beacon of light within the community. Have people come to us, learn something from us, share some of their knowledge, because we're not all knowing anyway. So, we're students as much as we are teachers. And it's really important to get them things out there. We want to meet everybody. I'm trying to put together pretty much a directory within the community, and so we can look within the community for help on mundane things, everyday life, who does what, where, when, where are the heathens around the state, and we're working toward finding all of the people and helping them find other people that they can meet with on a regular basis.
Now, is that the only
experience.
Facebook group you have?
Your Higher Self also.
Okay.
And it is an open group, so.
Yeah, and it's open to, and it deals with, your higher self actually deals with a bunch of different things in and of itself. But yeah, we have some other closed groups that are really based around the classes and stuff that we teach.
Yes.
And that's kind of where YHS Asatru came in as well. It was something that is really, it started off about the class, and now we got people from Florida and all over the place, but they all lend something, or they ask questions, and I post all kinds of stuff.
You had mentioned that you guys are vendors at some Pagan Pride events.
Yes.
Still doing that?
Mhm.
What's the best way to find you at those?
We have some banners and a couple of large tents, and you'll see your higher self out there. Our logo is pretty much a world tree, very much like Yggdrasil. So come in, check us out, and we carry all kinds of stuff, and it runs the gambit.
We post on the Your Higher Self site on Facebook as well whenever we're doing any kind of function. So.
And do you have another website or anything like that, or another way for people to contact you?
Yeah, right now we don't actually.
Okay.
Pretty much Facebook. So.
Got any events planned for this year yet?
Oh, yeah, we spent better part of a week trying to go through and figure out where everything is. So as far as events, we're going to try to make the Thoth Mute in Oklahoma in June. So we're going to be out there. We're not going to vend at that event because that'll be the first time we went there. I have some meetings that I need to attend because I'm shooting at Stewart for Indiana for Asatru and the Thoth. It's very much along the same lines of what I'm already doing, what I have been doing for some time now, so connecting people with people. But at the same point, like I said, we got these other moots or meetings at the church within. There again, a spiritual place that we've talked to the folks there, and they've been generous enough to allow us to come in and have our meetings there, and so those are going to be happening. We know that
there's a Celtic Norse gathering.
The Festival?
City.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's going to be coming up in July.
Is that the one we're speaking at?
Natalie and Lorelei Black.
Right. I'm speaking at one of them, and I just don't remember which one.
Okay.
Yes.
Really? When did that happen?
Well, Lorelei and I have been talking about it for a long time, and we firmed it up.
We had agreed that we're going to Babylon Rising.
Yeah, but that's not the one I'm speaking at.
Okay. I'm possibly speaking at Babylon Rising. I don't know about that one for sure yet.
Yeah, I think we're going to just attend the first one in July down there. And
what do they call that? Meridian, or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is something like that. Median, I think. And from what I've heard from a friend of ours, apparently it's a fairly nice place. At least he had something good to say. He works with Pagan Pride Day. So, I mean, he had some good things to say about it.
They've been putting a lot of pictures on Facebook lately. They're doing a lot of work.
They are. They're working really hard. So, and they're both really great girls. So.
Yeah.
They were on our last podcast.
Oh, were they?
Awesome.
Yeah. Great. Heck yeah! So we came in and tuned up their stuff too.
Right.
So if you had 5 or 6 parting words or one sentence, what would you say to our audience?
Hail Odin!
Hail Odin!
That works for me. Let's see. Crap I got going on. Hey, my furnace is broke. So all my books are on sale right now. In fact, you can get My Babylon on sale from now through May 1st in celebration of 1 year. I published the first book for 99 cents on Amazon, Smashwords. All my other stuff's on sale. Of Little Faith. That one you can get free on Smashwords or pay 99 cents at Amazon. Take your pick.
It's worth it.
And all my other stuff, including my newest book, Chasing the Worm. I will definitely be speaking at the Left Hand Path Conference coming up here in Indianapolis, July 24th to 27th. I will definitely be at Babylon Rising, June 12th through the 15th, possibly doing some presentations there. And as always, you can visit our website for the show notes at scrollofthought.com. Use our Amazon search window there. Also, $1 a show is always really nice to help us out with costs, and my furnace is broke. You can call us at 317-296-3247. Leave a message, ask questions, communicate. I'm out there, James L. Wilbur, on Facebook and Twitter, jameslwilbur.com, my Tumblr blog, blah, 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 blah. I can go on forever.
And I'm Colleen Kelly on Facebook, or Wooglet, WOOGLETT, @gmail.com.
And the best way to contact you guys is through your higher self on Facebook.
Yeah, you can find Brian K. Jenkins on Facebook.
Christy Minor Jenkins on
Okay.
Facebook, or the YHS Osseter, so on Facebook as well.
Excellent. Music provided by our friends at Shoebox Recordings. The intro was a selection from Journey by Coben. And coming out, this is Hair Dye by East Coast. Thank you very much for coming and teaching me.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
for
having
having
us.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Yeah, outside of me fumbling over that one. You know, out of all of the writing that I've ever done,